Hello, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Lean Global Connection. My name is Matthew Savis. I'm from the Lean Enterprise Institute, and it's my privilege to introduce our first speaker, Jim Womack. Jim is often called the father of the Lean movement, and he introduced the term Lean while leading MIT's International Motor Vehicle Program, which studies Toyota's revolutionary management system. He co-authored foundational works like The Machine That Changed the World and Lean Thinking, and he founded the Lean Enterprise Institute in 1997 and then the Lean Global Network in 2007. He holds a PhD in political science from MIT. And Jim, I should note, we actually don't see your slides as I had anticipated we would. And so,
So I'm going to
is it
share,
possible
right?
to share again?
There. How's that?
Okay. Looks good, Jim. We see the slides.
Okay.
Take it away.
Ready, ready to go. All right. Thank you. Well, I'm delighted to be here for the 2024 Lean Global Connection. Starting off, I'm in Boston. Everybody on is somewhere else, mostly in the world. And it's just a wonderful thing that the Lean Global Network has put together. And so happy to be part. Let me see if I can get the slides to work here. And this is always the moment of maximum tension for the speaker. But note that my topic is adapting, not adopting, adapting lean for a changing world. So what is this change that we are talking about? Just in the time I've been preparing this, there's been a lot more change. You look there at the top under rules of the economic world and trade and so forth with the American election, a pretty amazing sea change. One of the companies that we have admired the most, I will not name them, has done a fantastic amount of lean and has done a lot of reshoring into the US from around the world. Their lean team was talking the other day and saying, gosh, now we might have to stand up an enormous amount of manufacturing in the States if the tariffs that are proposed actually go through. How do we do that? So this is in real time a changing situation. Otherwise, we've had lots of geopolitical change. Across the developed world, you see a decline in social cohesion, the trust that people have in each other, the ability to work together. Societal attitudes toward work and organization have been continually changing. That the short-term sum up on that is that employers have given up all sense of obligation to employees, and employees have given up any sense of obligation to employers. And for a lean system to flourish, you do have to have a sense of mutual obligation. The flood of technology, we know all about that. Really quite striking, though, how much is emerging, how quickly. By the way, this is not just happening through some, cosmic coincidence. This is all being done by companies. We don't have to do this, but the sense is that we will do this, and that promotes a tremendous amount of change within companies. In particular, the AI movement sort of has the objective of eliminating a good part of the world's workforce. We lean folks, whenever we work with people, always say the one thing we will not do is help you lay off people. And here we have a whole portfolio of technologies that would seem to be dedicated to that purpose. So how do we deal with that? And then, of course, the climate and weather that goes with the climate. It's almost impossible these days. Every weather event is, said to be part of climate change. I doubt that, but it's just hard to know. So tremendous amount of change going on. Change is disruptive, and it may require adaptation by lots of organizations aided by lean thinkers. Now, here's the good news. This is the only good news you'll hear here. We don't need to rethink our beliefs and methods. Go see Ask Why, Show Respect. We can still do that. We can still do our 3 steps of management of Hoshin Conry of kaizen for improvement, of daily management to stabilized. This is all valid. We don't need to change a thing. But this is interesting. These were designed, perhaps without our realizing it, for a stable world. That there was lots of competition between companies, and companies worried about being passed by competitors, but that the environment itself was going to change was not really the important issue. And so now it turns out that that's an issue. And ironically, our beliefs and methods are actually designed to increase stability in organizations by teaching them to reduce variation. And one of the key things that maybe not all of our lean community has picked up on, but the importance of companies carrying a lot of reserves of cash so they can sail through the ups and downs of the business cycle and management errors. All of those things that we've urged people to do actually have a positive feedback loop on the economy by making it more stable. And now, well, it turns out that's not enough. So lean organizations, see if I can just move this. No, I can't move that. Lean organizations have always focused on adaptation, by the way, and that's good. That even in stable environments, we are constantly trying to improve. That's what Kaizen is about. And any improvement requires change. And one of the things that the Toyota folks have told us over the years is that anything you attempt to change or to improve is likely to have knock-on effects that you have to take into account. And we know how to do that. So lean organizations are inherently adaptive. They're designed to be adaptive. But now we need to change our orientation in one way, and that is our mindset from improving performance in stable conditions to adapting to survive. And that's very different, okay? A steady improvement in a stable situation versus maybe dramatic things that have to be done to survive. But our tested methods, as I hope I can describe in a minute, will help us do that. Let's see if I can do that. Let's see. Well, I'm going to continue on, Matt. The slides do not want to advance. This is the thing that the speaker most fears, the terror in this line of work. I have no idea why this is the case.
I have your slide deck available on my screen, Jim. Would you like me
Okay.
to share and I can advance them for you?
Why don't you do that? Take us down to the need for adaptation.
Okay. Okay, do you see
Yep, looks
the
good.
slides? Okay.
Yeah, and maybe you could increase that for folks a little bit, don't know. But
Is that what you're looking for?
yeah. So let's go now to the next one to talk about one challenge, which is clock speed. In the lean movement, we try to slow ourselves down. That's what A3 does. It forces you to spend time on the left side of the A3 before you jump to the solution or the countermeasure on the right side, which is where everybody wants to go, so that we design a system where you go slow, maybe then to go fast. And that's the opposite of what the world wants us to do in times of crises and rapid change. Similarly, Hoshin planning, we have done a lot of work on that and trying to teach it. Mark Reich has a new book on Hoshin planning that will be out in the spring. That's the real Toyota stuff. But it tells you that it takes 3 or 4 years to introduce a Hoshin planning system, a functional Hoshin planning system in an organization with modern management and the standard budget cycle planning. And that then that cycle runs on a yearly basis. And some of the Hoshin that are identified take 2, 3, 4, 5 years to actually work all the way through, aiming for a North Star that is years ahead. It maybe is impossibly far off in the distance. So we're used to that world of leisurely planning and of slowing ourselves down so that we don't jump to solutions. But in a chaotic world, where big problems can emerge quickly and dramatically, pandemics, these black swan events, there's this urgency to just do something. But from our side, we may have to think about how we can actually speed up the clock. I don't have the answer to that, but I do feel the need. Let's go next, Matt. So as I see the future, there's a need for balance between the immediate response to address the crisis, and you've got to do something sometimes now, and the need to truly understand the problem and the potential countermeasures if you're going to succeed. Nothing sadder and worse than jumping to a solution and it turns out it's the wrong solution and it doesn't work. Here's an example from the car industry that all across the world, in an amazing Leeming-like progression, all of the car companies 3 or 4 years ago said the future is battery electric vehicles. And they and the politicians said, and we will have nothing but battery electric vehicles by 2035. Okay, and off they go, except for Toyota. And Toyota was pursuing their standard doctrine of concurrent engineering and forcing themselves to look at alternatives. In fact, 5 alternatives of enhanced hybrids. They think they can still squeeze a lot more fuel efficiency out of the old-fashioned Prius-type hybrid. Plug-in hybrids, where you have a battery in the vehicle with a 70-kilometer or so range, plus a gas engine. Hydrogen fuel cells, hydrogen-powered ICE vehicles with a hydrogen tank rather than a gas tank, and battery electric vehicles. So they said, we're going to pursue all 5, and this is not going to go as fast as people would wish it to go. And they were denounced as anti-green. It was said that Toyota was sure to fail. But here we go to the next slide. You come back a few years later, and the whole industry has discovered that current technology battery electric vehicles are too expensive for the mass market. And the subsidies that have been put in place to deal with this problem are simply not capable of dealing with the entire market. And now we see in the political situation, all those subsidies are being eliminated. So we're now in rapid reverse. And all the car companies are saying, oh, well, gee, you know, we really should have tried plug-in hybrids, as I say here, as the gateway drug to battery electric vehicles in the future. And it's a technology with which most firms have little or no experience. Meanwhile, Toyota, maligned everywhere for doing nothing except vigorously pursuing 5 different alternatives, is sailing ahead through the chaos, having taken the time to weigh the options and then place a portfolio of bets. So that's an example. It's completely consistent with our lean doctrine, but it's something that all of us, I think, will need to think about. If we could go to the next, Matt. Second challenge is recovery. That every CEO, every organization likes to think somehow or other they can go to the bridge and stare into the future, jawed fearlessly, and either prevent a problem, for example, earthquake-proof all your buildings, I mean, really earthquake-proof them, or they can buffer chaos, for example, by piling up big piles of parts and extra facilities and so forth. And there are lots of other means, and they can endure crises that cannot be predicted. But Toyota long ago concluded that that is wishful thinking, that you think you've built a robust organization for all of the bad things that you can imagine, and it turns out different bad things like the pandemic show up that you hadn't imagined. So the Toyota says, look, the best course is to create the capability to quickly recover from adverse events. This is human capital, the capability to frame the issue, to solve the problem, to deploy quickly. That's what any management can do before the fact, because you don't know what the fact is going to be. Now, in Toyota, the Operations Management and Development Division is actually the key player. For those of you on this webinar who are OpEx people, think about this. This is something you could do, that if there is some sort of event that has to have immediate attention, they send someone from the Operation Management Development Division to become sort of the chief engineer for the recovery. And then anywhere you've got a problem, you've got a large group of employees who have spent years solving small problems to get back to where you should be, doing kaizen to improve to a higher level and sustaining it. And then Hoshin, and Hoshin is most useful for the big leaps that you have to make. This is not part of the annual budget process. This is the big stuff. And a company like Toyota has been practicing big leaps for a very long time. So they've got the human capital that's spread across the whole organization to deal with adverse events in a way that most organizations can't. And by the way, in the pandemic, they had one problem at Toyota, that they had 6 months worth of chips that they built up as the market was plummeting, which seemed like 6 months worth ought to be enough to get through, but the market came back, in a sort of a vertical ascent just at the time when all the suppliers were already booked up with other need for the consumer electronics industry. And so they had that one problem. Otherwise, they did very well. So that's what we've learned from that. Let's go on to the next slide, Matt. But chaotic conditions may require bigger changes. You may have to actually stand up organizations. You may have to fundamentally make over organizations, keelhaul them, right? And that says you have to go through what I call the nail it, scale it, sail it cycle, which is you got to nail the concept for what it is you're going to do. And for that, you go through prototypes and customer tests. And then you want to scale it. That's the S curve when you're talking about a conventional startup. And then you have to sail it, which is that mature phase where you believe in continuous improvement, but you have the stability built in to sail a steady course. The lean folks, awful lot of you on this webinar, are really strong in the nail it phase. And that's to do the minimum viable product that Eric Ries talked about. To do rapid prototyping, maybe you should try different types of minimum viable products, as we just saw in the example in the car industry. And that's done through concurrent engineering. We've got a lot to say about that nail it phase. And I think we're strong in the sail it phase. That's up here. We've leveled off, or not leveled off. We don't ever want to level off. We want to keep climbing, but not at the dramatic rate, growth rate we had. We're strong in the sail it phase, where we know how to create and sustain basic stability, how to conduct steady improvement, and then there's still the occasional big leap needed, which we do with Hoshin. I think we're much weaker in the scale it phase, where the need is quickly to install a lean operating and management system and to get that all the way across an organization. I've had some painful personal experience in the last year of looking at autonomous vehicle startups and electric vehicle startups that have got it nailed. They need to scale. And the reason they were talking to me was, how do you put in place a management and operations system that makes it possible to scale? And it turns out it's really hard. And I've given it an awful lot of thought. I wish I had the magic answer. But that is a part of our practice that I think with this world of change becomes a more important part of our practice. And we all need to think about how we might do that. Let me go and end this part. Just let me, bear with me. That call this the Toyota dream. Around 1950, after their financial crisis, Eiji Toyota and the other folks at Toyota in Japan set off to systematically create a stable platform for value creation that ran from concept to launch, from raw material to customer, and from delivery to the customer through the use cycle to whether the product was recycled or disposed of or whatever. And the idea was that if they had this stable platform built, they could sail smoothly and without disruption through chaotic seas. In 1950, Toyota in Japan ran out of money. was a financial crisis. They had very long lead times. They had an enormous amount of cash tied up in work in process and finished goods. And they ran out of money and they were taken over by the banks in Tokyo and cut the company in two. And Toyota Motor Sales was one half and the Toyota Motor Company was the other half. And it was the most humiliating thing that had ever happened to any of those folks. And they said, never again. And what they had with this dream was that they would have customers for life because they would always be the best option for the customer. They would have employees for life because they would continually upgrade their employees and give them more challenging things to do. They would have suppliers for life because they would do right by their suppliers, but also help the suppliers continually improve. Have investors for life because it would just be a good deal for investors. And so the whole platform would be floating, if you will, on this very stable hull of financial support. And to a significant extent, they actually succeeded. In the last 74 years since 1950, Toyota has never laid off a permanent employee anywhere in the world due to financial market collapses and product mistakes, which they sometimes have made. That's an amazing record that the world seems hardly to know about. But for me and for Dan Jones, as we looked at this in the early 80s and saw what they were doing, we said, wow, this is a dream everybody should have. Shouldn't every organization be thinking about how customers will come and stay, how employees will not just come and stay, but be continually upgraded in their capabilities, how suppliers will come and stay and be continually improved, how investors will think this is a really good deal, not for short-term investors, forget the short-term investors, the people who are in it for the long term, this would be a good deal. And in all this chaos in the world, most people would say, gee, this is a hopeless dream. It's an impossible dream. Stop dreaming this dream. But I'm not going to do that. When we work with our partner organizations, this is what I'm always thinking about. This is very hard, but I think it is a different sort of North Star. How could we create stable platforms of value creation that can continue for a long time and do right by everybody, the win-win, win-win? I think it's still worth pursuing. You have to decide whether you share that. But gosh, we need at this horrible time, really, not a horrible time, to have some North Star somewhere that provides us some direction and also some hope. So let us all work together to see if we could do that. Okay, next slide. Sum up is this. The chaotic world that we live in, the more and more chaotic world seemingly that we live in, still needs us. Now, I didn't say the chaotic world knows that it needs us. I just said it does need us. And we do have the beliefs and methods which organizations need to sail through this chaotic sea that we are in and to flourish. Do they know that? But we do need to adjust our orientation to these more chaotic new conditions where stable is no longer normal. By the way, in times of stability, we all get bored and say, gosh, wish we had some adventure. In times of high adventure like these, we say, gosh, sure would be nice to have stability. Well, you need some of both. But certainly, stability is no longer normal. And we, of course, need to be responsive to that. Go to the next and the final slide here. That the idea of the Lean Global Network that Joseph Ferro and Dan Jones and I had, soon aided by John Shook a long time ago, was that the world wants to divide itself, that the world wants to partition itself, and that we wanted to create an organization that in its design from day one was completely global, and where every affiliate would be treated the same way with respect. And we would go see their situation and we would ask why and ask what they should do. And then we would all sail together, not lock together, but just sail together as a sort of armada of lean virtue to see if we couldn't make the world a better place. And that was our dream, to be beyond borders, be beyond nationality, to actually try. And it sounds crazy and presumptuous, but try to make the world a better place. And we tried to do that, but we must, as always, and particularly now, make our case to the world with compelling examples of success. No one wants to hear about noble failures. No one wants to hear about all the trouble you've had and all the reasons why you didn't do what you wanted to do. People want to hear stories of success that are true stories. By the way, as you read the business media now and always, most of the stories you read are interesting but not true. We wanted stories that were both interesting and true, stories of compelling success. And so that's what we together try to do. So we need to redouble our efforts. We need to get going. The Lean Global Network is this wonderful way to share our learning, share our experiments, share what happened. We can talk amongst ourselves about things that didn't work. We're not keeping it a secret, but the world doesn't want to hear about that. But then we need to talk about how we also can consolidate our knowledge about things that do work. And then, of course, the Lean Global Network is our megaphone. So let's sail through the chaos together. I have no idea whether we come out on the other side, but let's be resolute. Let's all sail together and see what we can do to make the world a better place. So that's it for me, Matt. Don't know whether there's anything in the chat or not, but happy to take a
Thanks for
minute if
that.
there is.
Yeah, thanks for that great presentation, Jim. We have a couple of minutes here before our time is up. By the way, a few people are complaining about echo. We're going to look into that. We're not sure of the source quite yet, but we'll sort it out. A question here, Jim, from Charles Mook. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He asks, how do you deal with chaotic conditions in the public sector?
Well, the public sector is characterized by long periods of stasis, of nothing's happening, and then you have earthquakes. Okay, and so those are two different situations. In sort of normal times, stable times, which, as I say, are no longer normal, the problem in the public sector is that people have very little incentive to take risks, that you don't get credit actually for success, but you sure do get blame for failure. So that you need to have a change of attitude. It always involves finding a few people who are willing to do the thing that most people are not willing to do. And it involves our helping them. Now, I have to be realistic about that. I've spent quite a lot of time in public sector. I came from a family of public sector, generations of bureaucrats, and I do know how hard it is to move quickly. But there, perhaps more than anywhere, you need the model line to show success that is not requiring everybody to take a risk. You just find one crazy group that is willing to take the risk, and they get something that they actually are rewarded for. And then you can help other people do the same at much lower risk because you prove the concept. That by the way, there's just so much opportunity in public sector. It's not a very efficient place, that it's more focused on equity and political responsiveness than it is on efficiency and effectiveness. And I understand that equity is a good thing, but you need some efficiency and effectiveness if you're not going to have earthquakes periodically when the public gets discouraged that things are not happening and that you need to do something. So it's not easy, but let's keep working on that together.
All right. I think our time is coming to an end here. I see Christopher slowly coming back on stage to transition. So thank you, Jim, for a wonderful presentation. And thanks to everybody here for joining.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.